smash. Hey guys, it's Phil from the Honda Resource. Thanks for joining me on this episode. So today, it's raining outside, as you can see. Woo. But, well, it's actually not raining right this very second, but it's been raining. And thankfully I have a shop. Today, on days like today, is when I'm thankful I have a shop. So today, we're working on a 1994 Honda Accord, and we're doing a whole, pretty much whole front end rebuild. Got to do new upper control arms, inner and outer tie rod ends, and sway bar end links. There's a few other pieces on the front end that I'm not replacing, but so today I'm gonna be knocking these few things out on this customer's car and trying to get it to where he can hit the road again. So stay tuned. I'll show you the tools that you'll need, and I'll give you the know-how so that you can do this stuff yourself at home in your garage with some basic tools. So one of the main common issues with the inner and outer tie rod ends is you'll start having slack in your steering, or like when you're braking, you'll feel a vibration. So if you look, you can kind of see, hopefully, there's play in that, right? When the wheel's on it, it's a lot more drastic because you have a bigger plane here to see. But the inner tie rod end on this side is shot, and I've already completed all this stuff on the opposite side, on the passenger side, and on the opposite side, the outer tie rod end was bad. On this one, the boot is busted, but it don't have any slack in it, so he's chosen not to replace this one. Also, while we're here, we noticed that on the upper control arm, you see this play here? It shouldn't have any play there either. And on the other side, the upper control arms, the bushing was bad up here, and it had slack when you move it back and forth. I've never replaced these ball joints here. I just replaced the whole arm. This ball joint's already pressing on this arm, and you can get these arms pretty cheap, just the whole thing. So it saves you a lot of work and simplicity, and also you'll get new bushings here, you know, where it connects up here. So just go ahead and replace the whole thing. All right, so these are the tools that I actually used. Typically, to do inner tie rod ends, you need an inner tie rod tool set, but this one didn't require this set this time. So if you need one of these for your application, you can do a loaner tool at like AutoZone or O'Reilly's. Most auto parts stores, they have a loaner tools now, and you can get these for a day. I used a 2-pound sledgehammer, a 17mm wrench. With my application with the aftermarket sway bar end links, I wound up using a 15 wrench, and not pictured here, I also had a 15mm socket, and then we had a 12mm wrench, 12mm socket, 17mm socket on my little impact, and a pair of pliers. So that's the tools I used for this job. All right, so obviously this isn't the proper cotter pin here. They got a piece of wire shoved in this. But we'll fix all that whenever we reassemble it. All right, and then this nut right here is a 17mm. I don't usually take them all the way off, and I'll show you why. So the next thing I'll do is take my hammer, my 2-pound hammer, all right, and then we'll hit right here. And while this is still on, and this will pop down, if you took this nut off and you hit and you miss, and you hit the threads, you mess up the threads. But if you hit and you miss, and you hit the nut, you don't mess with the threads. See, just a couple licks, and you see how it came right out. All right, before I take that all the way out, I'm gonna break this jam nut here. It's a 19mm. So I'm gonna use my 19mm wrench. And you can see the play in that there. All right, it don't take a lot. Just get it loose. All right, so then what we have to do is count the turns, how many turns it takes to get it off. And what I say, by turns, hold the inner stationary here, and then turn. This one's gonna be a little more difficult, so I'm gonna have to get a wrench. Yeah, I'm gonna have to get a wrench. It's a 14 millimeter to hold right here. A lot of times once you get the jam nut broke loose, it'll just turn by hand. This one's not wanting to. So what I'm talking about the turns is you keep it to where this was up in the position that it was in. Get it started here. All right, so basically when I say I turn it around, reversing it off, so turn it to the left. And once this is back up, that's one turn. So, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 17. So we should be getting pretty close right now. It's usually about 17 turns and maybe a little, 1 or 2 more. So now we just go slow, and then wherever it pops off, we'll know that's where we need to start it when we go back together with it. That way our alignment will be pretty close. So that's 18, 19. So 19, it needs to face, see how it came off right here? So the joint is facing towards the front of the car, so we'll start the new one with the joint facing towards the front of the car, and then from there we'll turn it to top, and then we'll count 19 rounds onto it from there. That way it keeps our alignment fairly close. Now, I highly recommend putting new boots on the inner ones, especially if you're doing inner boots or inner tie rod ends. He decided not to put new boots on it for whatever reason. You can get the boots pretty cheap on Rock Auto. Like I say, he decided not to do it, so we're not going to do it. So we got to get this little ring off the outside here. A lot of the aftermarket boots have zip ties on them. The factory ones, such as these, have a little metal ring that goes around it multiple times. I gotta get this out of the way so we can get this inner joint out. Slide that off, and now it gives us access to our inner tie rod there. All right, so actually on this one I don't require the inner tie rod tool, just a 17 millimeter wrench. All right, so I got the 17 in there and got it to loosen a little bit, and now it's actually turning out. So there it is. You can see right here is where I put the 17 millimeter, and I was able to turn it out. The slack is rack and pinion has some slack in it too, but I think that just replacing this inner tie rod end is going to alleviate a lot of the play that it had. Now, if you're putting a new boot on, I'd take the old boot off here, but he's not putting new boots on it, so. All right, so I got this is the new inner tie rod end So they come with this new little washer. Got 2 little ears on it. So you need to make sure that those ears point towards the thread. And this washer goes on. And those little ears stick out. So what we gotta do is get those ears. There's 2 grooves here. You get those ears in there, and that's what locks it in place. Just take it like this. Place those ears into those grooves. And then start the tie rod in by hand. And then once you get it started by hand, take your wrench and finish tightening it down. All right, we got that tightened down. Obviously that rack does have some slack in it a little bit, but it's not too bad. It'll still do fine. Now, if you had new boots, now would be the time to go ahead and put on the boot. Like I said before, we're not putting a new boot on this, so we'll just go ahead and thread our nut on here so we can put our outer tie rod on. All right. And then remember, on our outer tie rod end, let me move this camera back a little bit. On our outer tie rod end, we had to count how many revolutions it was, and we started basically with the ball joint facing this way. So if you see, like, it kind of starts about right there. That's really where the thread's starting to catch. So it's pretty much where we had taken the other one off, but it had, in the event that you need to turn it, you could take the inner one here and you can rotate it wherever you need it. So with the 14 on the actual inner tie rod end. So now we gotta go 18, 16, 17, and 18. Now what I like to do is just go ahead and put it back into the knuckle, and then we'll start our nut back on that and zip that down. Get my cotter pin lined up there. All right, and so then we can tighten this jam nut. Tighten that jam nut down. All right, so now inner tie rod is replaced and we've got the outer replaced. It's got a lot of slack out of it here now. Still got their upper control arm slack, so we'll get that addressed next, but we need to put a cotter pin in here. So stick our little cotter pin in there and that'll keep that nut from backing off. We're good to go there. So now I just need to straighten the wheel and we'll get to this upper control arm up here. All right, so for the upper control arms, what we gotta do is take this cotter pin out here. Again, use some pliers. All right, and we'll take this nut off. And again, use our hammer to hit right here. There we go. Finally came loose. All right, so once that's loose, we can take off the top nuts. All right, on the driver's side, which is the side we're working on, we gotta take off the 17 millimeter nut and there's a 17 millimeter nut right there, right here. Now on the passenger side, when I already done it, it's a little more involved. One's under this fuse box, so you just have to take like this 10 loose here. And then I took that 10 right here loose, I just kind of picked this up and was able to get to that, but it's under there. And then the other one is under this ABS fuse box. You can kind of see it right there. So just take this 10 out, and there's a 10 right there, and you can move this one out of the way to get to that nut. So you can see there it comes right out. And here we have the new one. So you have to take this little boot here off. They just put it on there to protect it. Just a little cap. Alright. Then just slide it back in there where it goes. And put the new nuts back on top. Alright. Tighten down the top nuts. And I'm going to tighten down this one. That one's a different size on this aftermarket. Let's see if we... All right. All right. Perfect. All right, and then on our sway bar end links here, you see how these pieces are just kind of free floating here, and the bushing is actually missing a bushing here. So we're gonna go ahead and replace the complete the end link here. So boy, this whole thing is something else, let me tell you. I've already replaced the sway bar end link on the other side, and I didn't tighten it all the way down. And I've already loosened this one a little bit because when you're doing the sway bar end links, it's easier to let them both, kind of do them both at the same time, and not fighting against each other. So this one's a 12. Let me see here if we get this off. So once I get this one kind of assembled, we'll go to the other side and tighten it too, but I didn't want to tighten the other side until I had this one somewhat started. So here's our new one. So the way these go together is we'll have our bolt. The spacer don't go on the bottom of it though. So we'll put a washer. We got our bolt, and we got a washer on here, and then we get one of our bushings, and you put the little nipple going up like so, like that. All right, and then we're gonna go through it here, and we'll put another one of the bushings. Dropping stuff here. So go through it here, and we'll put another bushing on it with the nipple facing down. All right, and then we'll put another washer on top of that, and then our spacer. All right, and then another washer, and then the other bushing with the nipple facing up towards the sway bar. All right. And then our last bushing going down towards the sway bar, and the last washer goes on top of it. All right. The aftermarket varies a lot on the sizes of these. Like, I ordered these from the same manufacturer, and I think the other side was a 15, and these actually seem smaller, like a 14 or something. All right, got it down pretty tight. Then we'll do the other side. But yeah, like I said, they vary a good bit manufacturer, you know, even within the manufacturer, I guess. But the other side, like how this one had a black bolt with black washers, the other one has a silver bolt with gold washers. I don't know. They work the same, I guess. So at least we got good sway bar end links now. And now I just got to get another sway bar bushing because this one's bad. Let's see if I can get you in there and show you that. So if you look, it don't even have the bottom half of the bushing. It's gone. So that's gonna make some noise. The way it's like that, it's gonna make some clunking. But we got our new upper control arm, and we got the new inner tie rod in, the sway bar end link. And then on this side, you can see it's got the new sway bar end link there. See how it's got this silver bolt with the gold washers? I don't know. And on this side, I put a new outer tie rod in and a new upper control arm. This thing has some issues. You can see all the oil and stuff leaking. So I'm gonna replace the oil pan gasket. I don't have that yet, but it's ordered. It probably wouldn't hurt to replace both of the sway bar bushings. You can see that one's swollen up pretty good from oil getting on it. So I guess that's gonna wrap up this install. You know, I wish that I could have gave you more information on, you know, like installing the boot and stuff on the inner tie rod in and that kind of stuff, but the customer didn't want to do it. So, you know, I don't want to come out of pocket myself to try to make these videos. You know, if it was mine, I would probably put a boot on it. Well, I would have put a boot on it. They're fairly cheap. They're like 20 bucks for the pair. You know, if you order them off Rock Auto or something, but you know, I can only do so much here. Hopefully that kind of shows you how I go about doing the inner and outer tie rod ends, as well as the sway bar end links and the upper control arms. Didn't really show you guys too much on these upper control arms here, but there's a 17 millimeter up here for both of those. And you know, like I said earlier, on a lot of the aftermarket parts, the sizes may vary some. So, you know, maybe on some certain aftermarket control arms, you know, it may be a 19 millimeter or 18 millimeter. It may not be the 17, but factory is going to be 17, and is also on the nuts, like that hold for the ball joint, and well, for the upper ball joint and the little castle nut that's on the outer tie rod end. Those are all going to be 17 from the factory. Again, they may vary for the aftermarket. And then the sway bar end links were the 12 millimeter. Again, it was a different size for the aftermarket. So just trying to guide you guys along, and hopefully you can tackle this job yourself. I hope it was helpful to you. If it wasn't, I'm sorry. I know I probably didn't get the best angles and stuff, but it's kind of tough doing all this stuff, you know, by yourself, trying to film, making sure that, you know, everything is in the actual picture of the camera and actually doing the work yourself. So that's why I didn't film any of the passenger side. I did it last night, and I was just kind of in the mood just to knock it out. And I figured that I could at least try to record the driver's side of the day while I was doing that. So if it did help you, leave me a like and a comment, and check out some more videos on the channel. There's probably a couple more videos pertaining to the Accords on there too. So anyways, guys, I appreciate it, and make sure you hit that subscribe button. Those things don't cost you anything, right? The like, comment, subscribes, those don't cost you anything. They help me out greatly though. So thanks for tuning in. Hope to catch you on another episode. Peace.